Well, someone's got to break the ice, and it might as well be me. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess, it's part of my husband's work. And it's always difficult when a group of new friends meet together for the first time to get acquainted, so I'm perfectly prepared to start the ball rolling. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here, or what this place is about, but I am determined to enjoy myself, and I'm very intrigued. And oh my, this soup's delicious, isn't it?
What? 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 I don't even.
Just
I, I sup- what, how do I even? How do I even respond to that? What do I even say? But
just appreciate the fine work of
I,
Eileen Brennan.
I wish I understood the reference. But what a way to start episode 2 of the podcast. We get a nice round of applause in the comments for that gripping theatrical performance.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just
Oh
inhaled
my
my water.
God. How are you doing?
I'm alright, I just inhaled my water.
Well, that's not wise.
There we go. That's better. I'm well.
All right, we're off to a really great start here, aren't we?
It's been a busy week. Um, but yes,
Yeah,
nice to be back here for a second helping of Bearloni.
and we've picked up right where we left off with just complete unintelligible nonsense that I can't imagine is particularly gripping to listen to.
Well, we're doing what it says on the tin, so
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not
if
like we're
if
saying that
people
it's false advertising.
if people are still here, they've chosen this at this point.
It's on you. It's your fault.
It's all your fault. Um, Actually coming into the podcast with a topic this week, so I suppose we should dive into that topic a little bit.
Sure.
So we are going to be talking about all of the wonderful, exciting things that are being constructed at parks in Australia at the moment, because there's quite a few.
Putting on our Bob the Builder's hard hats and, talking
Oh my,
construction.
oh my God, don't start me on that show. That was my entire, I was obsessed with that show.
You're a Bob the Builder kid?
I was a Bob the Builder kid and a Teletubbies kid, but it like that was really little, and then I grew up to Bob the Builder.
Nice.
Yes. Oh, what a show. I can still sing the theme song off by heart. And I've just realized that by revealing that, I'm now gonna obviously have to do it.
Yes, naturally.
Bob the Builder, can we
Can
fix
he
it?
fix it?
Bob the Builder, yes we
Yes,
can.
he can.
Scoot, Muck and Dizzy and Rolly too. Lofty and Wendy join the crew. Bob and the gang have so much fun. Working together, they get the job done. See?
Very well. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely
See,
incredible. What a show.
I'm very much more elder millennial in my what I was raised on. So
Yeah,
mine was sort of ABC afternoon show kind of content. So things like
right.
Banana Man and the Raggy Dolls and Captain Planet. Um,
Oh, Captain Planet.
with a little bit of sort of Disney afternoon, so like DuckTales, Gummy Bears, you know. That was
Nice.
yeah, that was what I was raised.
Really varied. I think I was mostly ABC until we got Foxtel, or I think it was called something different at the time. Um, which would have been when I was about maybe 9 or 10, and then I
Okay,
kind of evolved to Disney and Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon.
right. So yeah, like
So
it's funny how people mention a lot of Disney Channel stuff, and I think Disney Channel sort of happened just after I'd aged out of it. So I
Yeah,
didn't grow
right.
up with a lot of the stuff that people are referring to on the internet now as like their throwback kind of shows. Like I never watched any of the what are the ones that it's like Wizards of Waverly Place or
Yeah, yeah.
Victorious or any of those. Yeah, that was a bit after my time. But yeah, I was
See,
classic Disney cartoons. Gummy Bears, DuckTales.
my friend group was Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon focused, so Disney was actually like the probably the least.
Right.
And then yeah, kind of evolved to Cartoon Network. I love the Cartoon Network classics. They had a channel called Boomerang, which was all the old cartoons from like the 70s, 80s, 90s. Um, so that was like Scooby-Doo, Looney Tunes,
Right.
Tom and Jerry, and like all the way up to the 90s with like Dexter's Lab and that sort of thing. And then Nickelodeon became my go-to. So like SpongeBob SquarePants, obviously, Angry Beavers, Wild Thornberrys, Fairly Odd Parents, and my favorite show of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Nice. Ah, nice. Were you a Legend of Korra person as well, by extension?
I I like Legend of Korra, but I don't think it's as good. I think Legend of Korra is good, but Last Airbender is on my list of if you ask me name the top 10 best, Last Airbender would be in there somewhere.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah,
I will say that when it comes to theme music, I think sort of your 90s series sort of they put their whole everything into it, I feel.
they really,
Was
really
not
did.
the phrase I was going to use, but I am keeping things clean because
They really did
I
put.
don't wanna be
There's some
they
absolutely
put
brilliant.
they put their whole puss into it. Sorry, I'm just gonna say
Yeah, yeah,
it.
I knew it was coming. Um, the I think there's only one cartoon theme song that I can think of from like post 90s that is as catchy and quotable as anything that came out then, and that's Phineas and Ferb.
I am not familiar. I know the name of the cartoon, but I could not tell you what the theme song was.
Oh, okay. So Phineas and Ferb is it's after my time, but it's so good, and particularly in America, it's so culturally significant. Like it's probably the most successful Disney cartoon to come out in a long time. Um,
Okay.
and it's just very, very quotable. I still watch it because like, even though it's I was too old for it when it first came out, it's just such a good cartoon. It's so funny. Um,
Mm,
it's done by a guy named Dan Povenmire, who also got really big on TikTok during the pandemic, I think. And he's
okay.
just a delight. He's a delightful guy. He's so funny. Um, but it's the classic. Like it's just goofy, and it's I watch it for Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus. They're oh
Well, with
that's
names
the
like that, you can't go wrong.
they're the modern that they are the modern like post 2005, like they're probably the most iconic cartoon hero and villain duo out there.
Okay, cool.
They're fantastic. Yeah, it's on
So,
Disney
and how does
Plus.
the theme song go again?
There's 104 days of summer vacation, and school comes along just to end it. So the annual problem for our generation is finding a good way to spend it. And then I don't know the words, but the tune is it's like very rapid paced after that. I can't remember all the words.
Nice.
So good. Such a good show. God, we got way off track. Where did that even
As is tradition.
where did that even come from? Oh yeah, we're talking about construction.
Yes, we were.
Oh my God. I'm suffering, by the way. I've been slightly sick this week,
Oh,
which
I'm
is
sorry.
a great way to be in week 2 of doing a brand new podcast, but here we
Yeah.
are. Um, so yeah, there's a lot going on. I think probably the best place to start is the one that has the most to talk about, which is Jungle Rush. Um,
Yeah.
I was
Slash
just seeing
Rivertown.
photos of yeah. I was just seeing photos from Jag's Journeys on Instagram this morning of how much progress is being done there. They've started installing the plane, the crashed plane that's going to be
Yeah.
part of the theming there. It's looking really cool.
I
A lot more
when
of
they
the
said
theming
that,
facade around the ride.
when they did
Yeah,
the sort of artist's impression and they were talking about the plane, I was like, "Oh, okay, they're gonna put a little rusty old Cessna in." And the photos that came out this
yeah,
week, I'm like, "Oh, no, that's a plane,
yeah. It's a decent sized aircraft. Yeah,
right?"
it's it's starting
But
to
it's
look.
interesting to see how yeah, it's like things were just like a lot of concrete and cinder blocks, and now they're starting to sort of like I don't know if they've rendered over a lot of the cinder blocks or what, but it's looking a little bit less raw construction materials now, and it's starting to resemble a little bit of what the final product will start to look like.
Which is probably
It's taking shape.
the most exciting part of construction for a project like this because like it's going to be mostly about the theming. Half of the roller coaster is indoors. You know, it's really once that theming starts to take shape that we're going to get an idea of how good this is going to be, and so it's very exciting to see.
I think the thing that'll really start to pull it together is the landscaping, and they start putting plants and stuff in. That's when it'll start
Yeah,
feeling polished because it's Jungle Rush.
yeah,
You gotta have the jungle.
yes. Which, by the way, I want to say I don't like the name.
Jungle Rush.
I don't like the name. Yeah, I don't like Jungle Rush. It sounds like a fever that you would get in in Argentinian rainforest.
It sounds yeah,
Argentina have rainforests?
it sounds like
I don't know.
a recreational drug that comes in a small bottle.
Sounds like an STD.
Um, but yeah, I'm curious to see what they're putting in as far as, theming in the interior of the ride goes, because I do believe there are, like you've probably seen a lot of the pictures of the panels of the brick temple interior, and there's, like, 3 panels that I saw in a clip this week where they're sort of like vertically shaped eyes, and I'm wondering if screens are going in behind.
Yeah, I'm expecting whatever's
Do you know the ones I'm
inside.
talking about?
Yeah, I think I do. And I'm wondering I think whatever's inside that show building, whatever happens while you're on that inclined turntable is going to be, at least by Dreamworld standards, something pretty impressive. Um,
Yeah.
I think,
Oh, it's probably gonna be the best Dreamworld's done as far as any kind of theming on a ride, 'cause I did get on, what do you call it? The what was the name of it? The Eureka Mountain Mine ride back in the day, and
ah, classic.
yeah, I think it's gonna be light years ahead of what was going
I
on
would,
there. Because bless them, for what it was back in the day, it was, serviceable, but it got looking janky over the years.
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I'm kind of just hoping it's not just screens though. Like, I feel like I hope that they learned the lesson from Scooby-Doo, um, where all of
Yeah.
this new the projection technology and all that sort of stuff. It sounds impressive. It probably looks really impressive when you get marketed that as a theme park and like offered that. But um,
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't look as good as I don't think screens ever look as good as practical effects unless you do the screens to like a literally perfect standard. Um,
Yeah.
you need like you need to be basically doing like a universe kind of like Transformers the ride, like floor to ceiling screens in a gigantic warehouse show building for screens to be anywhere near as immersive as practical effects.
Well, from what I understand, there's going to be screens in, changing theme parks here, Flight of the Wicked Witch at Movie World in the Wizard of Oz land. Just from the
Yeah.
concept art, it looks like it's screens showing sort of the exterior of the witch's castle with flying monkeys and whatnot.
Yeah, see, I'm hoping that that's going to be more sort of like a Leviathan style thing where the screens are blended kind of into the theming,
Yeah.
and are designed in such a way that the way that they're used is interesting,
Yeah.
not a Scooby-Doo style thing
No, the
where
Scooby-Doo one was poor. It was
Yeah,
like they'd set up a projector and a blank wall, and
yeah.
it
The screens were
took out any of the actual theming.
I think one of the biggest problems with it was that the edges where the screen ended was too visible. It was too obvious.
Yeah.
Um, and it really took you out of that immersion, which I think is particularly devastating because we already had a version of that ride that was very good and was very immersive, and they ruined it. So
Well, it was great. It was like a ghost train. It sort of did what it said on the tin, and,
yeah,
it took out what was they called it next generation, and it looked visibly crummier than any of the effects on a 20-year-old movie that it was based
yeah, the apple fell pretty far from the tree in that next generation.
on. 100%.
Yeah, that was not good.
Um,
We will
but
talk about
speaking of,
Scooby-Doo.
what are our
Yeah,
thoughts of Scooby-Doo? Yeah, because there was a recent update that Movie World put out about that.
yes, and I'm excited by some of what we're seeing there. There was a photo of an actual 3D model of one of the gremlin monster things, which
Yeah,
looked like it was
because I think
coming
that had
along.
been one of the existing ones, and I think they've
Yeah,
refurbished it, so it does fill me with hope that they're reinstating the original theme.
which brings me to another point about that though, is that I'm worried that in terms of theming, because I think that's what I'm most excited about for this refurbishment is for the theming to be redone again right this time. Um, and I'm worried that I'm not yet
Yeah,
seeing a whole lot of new elements introduced to that. It's more just giving what was already there a bit of a paint job. Um, but to be fair, we haven't seen a lot yet, so it's hard to say. Um, I just hope that they don't like basically just leave it the way it was, but give it a bit of a paint job. Um, because I actually do think they should be getting rid of those projection effects and going back to a more practical
100%.
effect based. Yeah, it, it needs to go back to that kind of more classic haunted house style.
Totally. Big and I don't think any of those projections work with any of that theming. Um, if you were to put any kind of projection or not that I would want it, but like, it would have to be completely redesigned with, the techniques they were talking about for Flight of the Wicked Witch, where they talk about projection mapping, so like things that they do on Haunted Mansion with like the singing heads on the little bus. Like that's the only way I can see projections working.
Yeah, yeah. It needs a complete um yeah, it definitely needs like a complete kind of overhaul if they're going to reuse that kind of thing. So I think those three new projects are, Flight of the Wicked Witch, Scooby Doo, and Jungle Rush. For me, that's a contest of theming, like because especially since two out of the three coasters, I already know what they're like. Scooby Doo, and I've been on two clones of Flight of the Wicked Witch. Where we're 100% down on what the coaster experience is going to be like. What are they going to do with the theming? And I think
Yeah,
it'll be exciting to watch. I'm
because
I'm
what are they
starting to
going to
gain
do? Yeah, what are they gonna do to one up Gumbaya World?
yeah, which I don't think by movie world standards is a particularly hard thing to do. I love Gumbaya World, but they did TNT on a Gumbaya World budget, so what they did was impressive for the scale. I think movie
100%.
world should be comfortably able to do something a lot better than that. And by the looks of things, to be fair, from the updates I've seen of the Wizard of Oz so far, it looks like they're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, the Kansas farmlands look really good with their sort of, their faux corn fields, and I've seen that they've got, like, Professor Marvel's little wagon thing amongst the track, so that's a cute little touch. Um, I
I love that the trains are tractors.
Same, it's such a cute little touch to that, like, it could have just been generic roller coaster, and that's just I don't know, it just added add a je ne sais quoi to it that's just, oh, mwah.
I always love a roller coaster train that's clearly custom designed and clearly had a little bit of thought put into what it looks like aesthetically. And
Totally.
yeah, fantastic. I love the way they look. Um, and I do want to ask what you think of if you've seen the Flight of the Wicked Witch train.
I have.
Um,
And I at first I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting choice of colors," and then I saw the reasoning why they picked those colors, and I'm like, "You know what? That's
yeah,
cute. That's had some thought to it. That's I like that."
it's had some thought put into it, but I'm not sure if I like it. Um, I think it just all clashes together, particularly with the pink track and then those bright colors on the train. I think it all just clashes together a little bit, and the reasoning behind it is great, but just if you look at it from a bystander who's never seen Wizard of Oz in their life, is going to look at that and go, "What an ugly looking roller coaster."
I at least appreciate that there was reasoning behind it, unlike the Kenny's Forest Flyer trains, which do not match anything to do with the rest of the
Yeah,
ride, and there's no thought put into it. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
just my 2
Uh,
cents there.
look, I have nothing good to say about Kenny's Forest Flyer, so I fully agree with you there.
I
Um,
have ridden it in the past, back when I think it was before it was even Escape to Madagascar. It was like I think it was called Skyrocket or something because it was like
is that
between their themings of it was Nickelodeon Land and it wasn't quite Dreamworld
yeah,
DreamWorks Land. It was a weird transition
yeah,
period.
there was that short little period in between before they got the DreamWorks licensing, yeah, because it was originally when it was first built, it was the Rugrats Runaway Reptile roller coaster.
Right.
That's when I first rode it. Um, that was way back in the day, and then yeah, they lost the Nickelodeon theming, and just before they got DreamWorks, there was a little period in between. So yeah, it would have had a generic name. I think you might be right. It was Skyrocket or something like that.
Yeah. I remember me and my friend
Um,
went on it at the time, and out the front of there was just this thing saying, "This is a moderate thrill ride." And as we were on the ride, she just turns to me and goes, "This is moderately thrilling."
oh, that's so good. I'd love that they consider that a moderate thrill, though. Like, really?
I suppose it is for little kids, I guess.
The thing barely moves. It's like it crawls through the layout. It does absolutely nothing. I'd hate to see what they consider a mild thrill ride in terms of, I suppose, Big Red Boat.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's really interesting. Um, they used to have a. This is totally off track, but Dreamworld used to have a kind of a ski run style system for their rides. I
ski run
remember it. They
styles.
had, yeah, like you know how ski runs have the shapes based on their difficulty? So like the
Oh,
most
like the
difficult ones are
diamond
like,
and
yeah, black diamonds and I think there's double black diamonds and then you've got like the blue square or something like that. I don't know. I've never been skiing.
yeah,
Um
this is just coming back to me now. It was like a little symbol that they had next to the name of the attraction on, like, the map brochure.
yeah, I vividly remember that they had these red signs out the front of every single ride, and it would have the name of the ride and all of like the restrictions and stuff listed underneath. But they had different colored shapes as the way of indicating the thrill level. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that Black Diamond was the extreme thrill, like you know, Tower of Terror and Giant Drop and stuff were all black diamonds.
Right.
Um, which I think is probably a ski slope reference.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I feel like that I feel like yeah, maybe the family thrill rides were like blue squares or something like that. Maybe there's I don't know, green circle. I don't know what it was, but I just remember those red signs um out the front of every single ride.
Speaking of, like, park maps and brochures, you know what I would like to see? I'd like to see them go back to an old school illustrated map instead of like these weird sort of almost like there was the 3D map they had on the Dreamworld website for a bit, and the current map is just a little bit, I don't know, it felt like it was created by a graphic designer. Like I'd like to see it, I don't know, like almost like the old Disneyland map or Wonderland maps where it was illustrated by an artist.
Yeah, the nice art style. I was absolutely delighted to find that on my recent Europe trip, almost every park had paper maps and they were all illustrated.
I you
I was
know,
like,
because I
feel
was a
like I'm
massive
back in like
nerd.
2005.
Yeah, because I was a massive nerd, I kept my Wonderland map for the longest time. Um, and I was just like, "Yeah," it's like, it's every time I sort of wanted to go on a roller coaster, but because, like, I was young and didn't really have the funds to sort of make trips out to Sydney all the time, from Lake Macquarie where I grew up, um, it was just, like, sort of my way of revisiting the memories of Wonderland was looking at the map, which is odd in retrospect, but, you know.
I don't know if I ever had any park maps as a kid. I remember having park maps from our one of our first family Gold Coast trips, and I was obsessed with those while we had them, but I don't think they lasted very long.
Yeah.
Um, and now I've collected a few over here in Europe. At first, because the first park I went to when I went over to mainland Europe was Parc Saint Paul in France, and it's quite a small park and it's not very like well known or anything. So when I saw that they had them, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like this little park still got paper maps and they're illustrated. That's I'm gonna keep one of those because that's really those things are rare nowadays."
Yeah.
And then every single park that I went to after that, Park Asterix had them, Europa Park had them, Coneyland had them, Fantasiana had them. Like they were just everywhere. It's like, is it just Australia that has decided that these are outdated?
Yeah, I don't know, and there's something so impersonal about having just the app on your phone. Yeah,
It is, and I love the apps for a lot of reasons. I love being able to check queue times live. I love being able to, like, if I want a fast pass or something, I can just buy it on my phone. But yeah, the art of the park map has been lost.
totally.
Yeah,
I'm very
there
much
used to
an
be.
old man, get off my lawn kind of, traditionalist in
Yeah.
that respect.
Maybe we should draw our own park maps anytime we go to a park. Just go in with a sheet of paper, just a sheet of baking paper, and it's just like
Like the
rides
full-on butcher's paper
drawn.
roll that they'd wrap fish and chips up in.
Yeah,
Or that
yeah,
they
the
use in
big butcher's
corporate
paper roll.
workshops where we have "All right, we're gonna have an icebreaker exercise here where we're gonna get, what was your name? Sandy from accounts? Yeah, Sandy from accounts is gonna get up, and she's going to describe her coworker Kevin, who works in, invoicing, and they're gonna use words to describe each other, that start with the same letter of their name. So, what have we got for you, Kevin? Kind Kevin, yeah, I think that's a good one. Sandy, what about Sandy? What kind of person do we think Sandy is?
Shithead.
Shithead Sandy, yeah, yeah. She looks like a bit of a shithead, doesn't she? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
where I'm going with this.
I you went on with that way longer than I thought you were going to, and I love that. The commitment the commitment to the bit was astounding.
And also not being able to let go of the bit once it's gotten away from you.
Yeah, just keep going, keep
Yeah.
going. It'll get funny eventually.
People come back on board that, they'll come around.
It's still funny. I can convince them. I can convince them.
Quiet, you awful man.
Oh, I'm suffering. I'm dying. You're making me laugh, so it's fun. It's fine. Um, okay. So we were talking about. We've talked briefly about three of the rides under construction in Australia at the moment. So Jungle Rush is expected to open late this year. As far as I can tell, that seems to be on track. What have they got? Like two or
I had my doubts for a bit,
yeah.
um, but it's since sort of turned a corner in the last couple of weeks where I'm just like, "Oh, okay, yep. We've got trains on the tracks now. They're testing sort of going in and out of the shed and into the station." So, we
Yeah,
can't be too far away from doing envelope testing and whatnot.
they've got two
But I would
months.
hope to have seen a bit more of the interior theming done for them to properly do envelope testing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I could see it being delayed slightly because of testing, because I feel like this ride is a little bit complex. They've probably got to test a few different scenarios and that sort of thing. They've probably also got to train their staff on quite a few evac scenarios, because I'm just thinking about all the
Totally.
block zones that this has, and particularly that incline turntable. I feel like the technical complexity of it, just from a ride operator standpoint, is so for those who don't know how the emergency stop on a roller coaster works. Essentially, you've got two options when you have to stop a ride for any reason. You've got your ride cycle stop, which basically just tells the PLC or the ride computer abort this cycle. Um, and what that does is it'll stop the trains at the next point, and it'll stop the cycle and interrupt the cycle. But if you then resolve the matter yourself, um, you are then usually either by getting maintenance to put it in manual mode and restart it, or by restarting it yourself, you are able to just start the ride again. E-stops cut the power to the entire ride immediately. So every component that requires power at all, except for brakes, um, because brakes are usually either magnetic or friction, and their standard position is to be closed and active. Um, Everything else just stops. The power gets cut and it stops immediately, no matter what position it's in. So that incline turntable to me is very, very interesting from an evac standpoint, because theoretically you can e-stop that at any point around that rotation of the incline turntable.
Right.
So including with it being at any different angle in between the two tracks. So there's probably a whole lot of different evac scenarios that they have to test and train their ride staff on, of like, how do we evacuate a train that is literally halfway between the two tracks? Um,
Mm.
or how do we evacuate it? Like, because from what I've seen of the structure design, there's catwalks on either side of the like, if the turntable was aligned with one of the tracks, there's an easy catwalk. But evacuating a train that's halfway in between is probably a lot more complex. So that's something that I'm interested
Yeah.
to see and analyze as a bit of a nerd. Um,
Well, what do we think is going to be the ride process? Like, do we think there is only one movement of the turntable per ride cycle? Or do you think that the train will go onto the turntable multiple times throughout the layout?
I'm starting to believe it goes onto the turntable twice. Um,
Yeah.
I've
Because
I've looked over that blueprint of the layout so many times, and I like, the circuit doesn't seem complete. Like, it doesn't seem like it makes any sense unless I think you go up the turntable twice.
yeah. Well, from when we were looking at the blueprints and, like, the map of the track, I thought the center track was going underneath the turntable, and the turntable only moved from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's a three-point turntable,
Ah,
and that the
interesting.
first movement goes into the center position and then goes to either, so say center position is point B, and then moves either to point A or point C,
Right.
is my guess.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See, I'm only getting, obviously, um, not being over there. I'm only getting like occasional pop-ups on my social media feeds with photos and stuff. So I still haven't kind of gotten a grasp on the layout for myself. But that's very interesting. Um, I'm excited for this ride because it's a unique little model.
Yeah. And, good on Dreamworld for getting something that is a new Vekoma prototype
Yes.
that is custom layout, because it seemed like Dreamworld were not going to take chances in the wake of recent events of recent years.
Yeah,
Um, but it's good to see that they're taking a chance on a custom model with this.
I think that as much as I love Steel Taipan, I think it was a worrying sign that um, their investment in new rides seemed to just be what can we pick up for cheap.
Off the
I
shelf.
was expecting, yeah, like a lot of clone layouts, cheap ride models, nothing particularly exciting. So to see them jump straight into something like Jungle Rush, which is the first one of its kind that Vekoma has done, and obviously, I joined a new coaster Discord the other day, and they you could pick your favorite manufacturer as one of your flares on the Discord, and I picked Mark, but I almost there was part of me that was like, I'm starting to be a damn big Vekoma fan. Um,
New Vekoma stand.
yeah, I'm a big new Vekoma stan, so I'm very excited for this. Um, I think it's going to be a really, really good coaster for Dream World, and I'm glad to see that they're doing something with it in terms of the theming as well. I can't wait to hear all the reviews come out, but I'm expecting it could be one of the best rides in Australia as a complete package.
I think if they get more, like, if it's more than one sort of loop of the whole cycle, like if you do get multiple turns on the turntable,
Yeah,
I think it will feel like a more complete ride.
yeah.
Um,
I think a lot.
Otherwise, if it's just sort of one turn of the turntable and then one sort of loop of each of the track,
Yeah,
I don't feel like it doesn't seem like a complete ride to me.
yeah. I think a lot also
Um,
hinges on what actually happens theming wise while you're in um while you're on the turntable, because I feel like a turntable can really, really interrupt a ride's pacing if there's nothing interesting happening while you're on it. So,
I'm assuming, and this is my guess, that it will be sort of kind of Indiana Jones Revenge of the Mummy, sort of like
yeah,
choose your destiny or something like that, and you go through either the snake tunnel or the spider. I don't know. I'm just theorizing here, but
yeah,
to me that sounds like the concept.
yeah, yeah, and I'm hoping that you're right because I think that could be the turntable will either be the highlight of the ride or my biggest criticism of it, depending on how well they do whatever's happening while there's not a lot of roller coaster happening. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that'll be very interesting. I think I'm expecting that to be the best of those three projects.
I hope so. Although don't doubt that Movie World's theming will be top notch, especially in sort of like inside the Emerald Palace and sort of the I am Oz of the Wizard and whatnot, and all the haunted foresty bits.
Yes.
I think because the two models of roller coaster are off the shelf models, and that Jungle Rush is the bigger question mark over everything, and the storyline of Rivertown and Jungle Jane or whatever her name is still kind of unknown. I think that puts a bit more of a mystique to it. That makes it more exciting.
A little bit more exciting, yeah. And I am a little bit disappointed with Movie World's choice of coasters. I feel like they could have done
Yeah.
something a bit better. You know what?
Like if you're gonna
I
if you were
personally
gonna replace
they I've just worked at Emerald Park, so you know what I'm gonna say. Why
yeah, and I was about to say a similar thing.
why in the hell did they not get an STC mixed with Family Coaster or Family Boomerang, the dueling combo? Because I haven't
Yeah.
been to Tripsdrill yet to see how Hal Zubikov and Voldamp work, but Force and the Quest, such a brilliant combo. It is such a great
It
area with so much kinetic energy. It looks fantastic. Fina Force is one of my favorite coasters. Um, it interacts well with the Quest, and the Quest I know is very, very popular with the younger audience there. It just works. It's so good, and I don't know why they wouldn't do something similar because that also gives them a new thrill attraction as well as a new family coaster.
It seems like they're trying to make this area more palatable to young kids. Um,
Yeah.
because to be fair, like Movie World do have a good selection of thrill rides,
Yes.
and outside of Spooky Coaster and Roadrunner, there aren't that many milder rides
See, what I what
because
I personally might have
Superman,
done,
Green Lantern.
what I might have done is
Yep.
a dark ride, a family-friendly dark ride as like a third attraction in that
Get
area.
get rid of that junior driving school, man. Put
Yeah.
in the, you know, if it's not the log ride that it used to be, put in a you know, some kind of river dark ride,
If you,
different one.
I don't know how often you go down that area of Movie World. Have you ever like looked in junior driving school and seen a queue for it, or even
No.
all of the cars in motion? I don't. I think every time I've been down there to have a look, there are cars just parked because it's not a popular
It
attraction.
it feels a little low rent to me.
Yeah. It,
Um, it's yeah. It's something that I would expect at a smaller regional theme park.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that they tried to make it more movie world worthy with the whole, oh, you're driving around a miniature version of movie world. Yeah, it didn't work. It's not that good.
Yeah.
It's
And
devastating.
also they haven't updated it to get rid of Arkham Asylum as well, and it's
Yeah,
yeah,
Arkham
it's
Asylum is
outdated.
still there. It's ridiculous. Yeah, no, not a good ride. I think they should movie world should get a dark ride next, like a proper dark ride. I'm not talking about Justice League. Justice League is fine, I guess, but it's like it's not that good.
Justice League is fine, that's exactly the word. It's
Yeah,
nothing special.
they need a proper decent dark ride. And
Yeah,
I feel like maybe Wizard of
because the
Oz
thing
was an
is
opportunity.
yeah. Well, audiences and theme park patrons are now more aware of what's going on in the other parks across the world, and, you know,
Yeah,
it's great that Movie World and Dream World are stepping their games up to try and remain competitive with those, but they need to really,
yeah.
really keep in step with what the rest of the world is doing as far as theming goes.
I definitely
And I'm
think
hoping
you're
this is a step in the right direction.
yeah, I think you're really onto something there as well. I think, in the 90s and the 2000s, Australia could get away with quite a lot, or those parks could get away with building some pretty deep attractions and
Mhm.
and marketing them as something very, very, very special. Simply because the the presence of theme park content on social media and stuff wasn't a thing yet. Um, and also, I feel like maybe there was a lot less of a like, yeah, people still went on holidays and went to somewhere like Disneyland, or they'd still go somewhere else, but like it just the lack of content that got shared around from people's holidays to say Universal Studios or whatever. You didn't see it on TikTok constantly or on Instagram constantly. And people would kind of believe
Mm.
that. Like
It was
if you just built some, semi decent ride and said, "Oh yeah, this is one of the best roller coasters in the world," people didn't really have any way to prove that you were wrong unless they'd been to another park
mm,
themselves. But now we see, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and you see other roller coasters, and you go, well, I know that's better than anything on the Gold Coast.
100%. It's yeah. People are more educated is the wrong word, but they're more savvy about what the existing offerings are in the rest of the world, and they're realizing that
Yeah,
the local parks aren't doing as much to keep up. So I do think that this theming race, if you'll wanna call it that, seems to be in reaction to that.
absolutely, and I think it's a very positive thing. I think that it'll only improve the parks overall. To
Oh, totally.
actually have a little bit of immersion. There was a time there where I think Movie World calling itself a theme park was almost a running joke. It's because
Mm,
how few of the attractions were actually quote unquote themed. Um,
yeah. It's I think I've made it in made this reference before somewhere, but I call it the Six Flagsification of movie world, where it's
yeah,
superhero theming across everything and it's just cutout theming. It's not anything immersive. It's 2D cutouts in the queue lines, and that's
that's it. Yeah. DC Rivals and Green Lantern being probably the biggest examples. Um,
adding Flash Speed Force to the mix as well.
yes, which I haven't been on yet. But well, actually I have, but I haven't. Um, so yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see that there's a return of kind of well-themed rides. We should talk about some other projects other than those three because there's one that I wanted to bring up.
I would like
Yeah, there's one in particular I
me
wanna
too.
wanna bring
I
up on this podcast, which is one that
same because I don't think anyone's talking about it.
yeah, and I well, we don't even
Are we
know.
talking about the same thing?
I think we're talking about the big banana.
We are.
Yes. So, well,
You know I love me a big thing, so this was one I was excited to bring up.
God, we all love a big thing. Um, yeah, that's
And the big banana is arguably the king of the big things in
it is
Australia.
the big thing. Um, and
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I believe it's quite a while ago now that they put in um requests for permits to the council to construct an alpine coaster, a mountain coaster similar to the one that was recently opened at Thredbo. Same model, but I believe quite significantly shorter. And it appears that they got those permits, and now we're just kind of waiting around to find out what the hell's going on with it.
Yeah, to see if there's any kind of earth moving and, to see what's going on. Because I think the plans were announced in like 2022, but they hadn't gone to council yet. And I think they went to council in like August 2023
Yeah,
and it got approved sometime shortly after that.
yeah.
But we just haven't heard boo since.
So they've had planning permission, well, construction permission for over a year now. And I
Yeah.
will say that that park has built quite a lot of new stuff and is planning to build quite a lot of new stuff as well. I know that they,
I think they had a plan of like a good like $50 million investment over the course of the next 20 years. So I think they've got their investment, but they're metering it out as
yeah,
things move
because I
along.
know, and I'm not sure if this is complete yet or if, because I can't remember when I saw the photos of construction, but they were doing an expansion on their water park. Um, they did, they built this little,
I believe they're doing
yeah,
yeah, that's what they're working on. Like they've taken down one of the slide towers and they're building something different.
yeah. So they're doing a
So I
water
think
park expansion. There
yeah,
was a whole
and
bunch of,
once that's up and running,
yeah,
then I think we'll start to see movement on the Alpine coaster.
yeah. I mean, surely we're going to see it. I think it's going to happen. I if they've really got this plan to invest $50 million into the park, then surely they haven't. I
Yeah.
think they
I don't quote me on the 50 million. I might have been pulling that number out of somewhere, but there was a sizable like investment over the course
yeah,
of
a
10 to
large
20 years.
amount of money. Yeah. Um.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very
Um,
interesting to see. I haven't been to the Big Banana in years, and it's always kind of been like on the fringe of what you would consider a park. Like it's more than just a family entertainment center, but it's not quite like park yet. Because really all it had the last time I went was it's got the toboggan, the alpine slide. It's got a giant slide, it's got the water park, and it's got mini golf and then like a bunch of a 4D cinema and like a plantation tour of what used I don't know if they still operate it or what used to be the banana farm. Um,
yeah.
and
I believe that the Alpine slide might be being replacing like the Alpine coaster is might be replacing the Alpine slide. I can't. I'm not in
Interesting. See,
100%, but that is ringing a
I thought
bell.
I saw blueprints of the two coexisting, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
Um, I could be wrong on that though. I could be very wrong.
Oh, I could be wrong too. So I'm not 100% sure. I remember seeing, I think it was like the 2023 annual report
Yeah,
somewhere, and it was something saying along the lines of to be completed at the end of 2024.
yeah.
I'm trying to find where that document went. Um,
It'll be interesting to
just
see how that goes. Because I do worry a little bit about the big banana because it does give off this vibe of a park that is trying to reinvent itself and get itself back to its heyday. Because it doesn't quite. I'm pretty sure, and I might be wrong on this, but the banana plantation itself is not really active anymore. And the whole appeal used to be that it was an actual banana plantation. You could get bananas there. And then there was also all of these little banana related attractions to get people to kind of stop as they were driving through. And I feel like now that they've had to deviate away from being an actual banana plantation, they um if maybe yeah they're kind of really pushing like, oh, we should have a water park. We've got to really focus on the attractions and stuff.
yeah. I believe that the Big Pineapple was undergoing a similar sort of crisis of identity where they weren't doing the tours of the plantation, and now they're sort of reintroducing it, and they've done a big renovation to the pineapple itself.
Yeah,
And yeah, they're sort of starting to really get it back to being a tourist attraction because I think it got bought by someone else at one point, and the pineapple fell into disrepair, and I think they've just been doing a lot of work to get it back
yeah.
open and sort of in business again.
Wish they did that
I
for the big
spoiler
orange.
alert, I did make a trip to the big I know, right?
Big
But spoiler
orange.
alert, I did make a trip to the Big Pineapple in, when I went to the Sunshine Coast recently, so keep an eye out for that episode.
Lovely. I will be watching enthusiastically. I know your enthusiasm for a um for a big thing.
Guilty. I found the annual report.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and just scrolling down, where are
While we wait for Kieran to find what he's looking for in the annual report, this is a friendly reminder to go and like and subscribe on both of our channels and like this podcast as well. And if you don't like listening to it on YouTube, you can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Woo!
Yeah, we love dead
Okay,
air.
projects commencing soon. Alpine Coaster. Approved for development in August 2023, this ride will operate alongside the existing toboggan attraction.
Right. So,
The Alpine Coaster will offer a two-person coaster ride down an 860-meter track with a target installation date of late 2024.
right. So we're expecting construction on that to start pretty soon then.
You would hope so, because it kind of is late 2024 right now.
Yeah. I'm what I'm taking from that by installation date is
Commencement of
I think they're
construction.
talking about commencing construction in late 2024. So
Hmm.
I'm I'm thinking I mean, Alpine coasters are not too like there's not a lot of like tall vertical construction or anything like that to do. So
Yeah,
I don't think it should take anywhere near as long as some other projects that are going on right now. So it could possibly open, maybe by the Easter holidays
yeah.
2025, if construction really does
Well, I
start
think
very
they'll
soon.
want something that will keep people coming there outside of the summer months, sort of
Yeah,
in the reverse way that Threadbow have done it, where they want something
yeah,
to
yeah,
keep people coming to Threadbow outside of the winter months, which
yeah.
that's another story that I have opinions on.
Yes, yes. Everyone go and check out Projector Bear Times wonderful opinions on Threadbow.
Coming soon.
Coming very, very soon. Um, is there anything else that we've forgotten? Because I feel like when we came up with this topic for the podcast, it felt like there was more than just four projects. I
Um,
mean, Aussie World have just finished building their new flat ride,
yes,
um,
it was
which,
pretty much built when I visited. It was still behind
yep,
sort of fencing and whatnot, but we could see what the ride was. Um,
yes,
so I'm not sure if it's actually opened, but it was close to being finished. I was there in July.
it's pretty much finished. I believe it's a ride model by Technical Park, which is interesting because I know that they also are a park that has like a bit of a I don't know if it's like a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan or whatever going on right now, and they actually released a whole list of ride models that they were going to include.
Okay.
Um, and I believe that 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 plan is still being more or less adhered to because that this ride model that's been included was on the list. So there's kind of a little bit of excitement, like, okay, well, maybe the rest of what's on that list is also still happening.
Do
Um,
you happen to recall what were the other ride models? Do you have some tea to spill?
I would have to dig through the dreaded parks forums to find that document again. But I believe there was a
Mm,
drop tower, um,
okay.
as well as a few other thrill attractions from both Technical Park and Zamperla. I believe there was a Zamperla air race, which, if you don't know, is Pandemonium, or not, what's it called now?
Serpent
Serpent
Slayer.
Slayer at Dreamworld. Yeah, that's a Zamperla air race. Um, I believe there was like, yeah, maybe three or four other thrill size flats and then a bunch of smaller flats as well. And I think there was something else, but I'm trying to recall what it was. I have this feeling like it was a some sort of um more adventure park style attraction, like along the lines of a zip line. I don't think it was a zip line, but that style of attraction
Okay.
as well. And this new plan came out around the time that they were constructing SX360, and it included SX360 itself, as well as the replacement for their old Wild Mouse, which has turned out to be Dingo Racer. Um, so there's there's um there's a lot of potential attractions that could be coming to that park in the next few years.
Those lap bars on Dingo Racer are strange and unusual punishment, I'll just say that.
They're abysmal. I actually really and it's consistent to I think I've been on three Rebuchon spinning mice now, and they all have that awful lap bar, and it's probably the downfall of that ride is how
Yeah.
much it can sometimes hurt.
Oh,
It
100%.
just
And also going through the lateral forces that the spinning
yeah,
causes it to crush up against you. It is not a comfortable experience.
it's not comfortable at all. I recently rode one from Zamperla, and they were far better. It's got a much more like it's more of just an actual lap bar that sits on your lap. So the laterals are not uncomfortable in the slightest. It's perfectly fine. So Rebuchon need to take notes.
It just seemed like the design just seems like an unnecessary over-engineering of something. I don't understand the thought process behind the way it's done.
Yeah, it's unusual. It's odd. I don't know what the thinking is behind it. But yeah, I don't like them at all. Um, I think Aussie World needs me. They need a big coaster.
They do, because I if someone was to say that they were putting in something that was between Dingo Racer and Bug Run, I'd be like, "Really? Like, Dingo Racer's mid at best." Um, it
Yeah,
yeah, you need a proper thrill, and the most thrilling
they
thing they
do
have
need a
at that
proper
park
thrill.
is SX360.
And what's interesting about it is that I put Aussie World in terms of the scale of the overall park. I put it on the same level as like maybe slightly smaller than Gumbaya World or Adventure World, like the
Yep.
next tier down from that.
It's
Um,
definitely more dense than something like Gumbaya World because Gumbaya World's spread out quite a lot.
Gumbaya World's very spread out. I'd say Gumbaya World has become bigger than Aussie World, but not
Mhm.
too long ago I would have said that maybe the other way around. Um, and but it seems to be the one that doesn't have a coaster that is going to really entice even a coaster enthusiast.
Yeah.
Like you picture someone like Coaster Studios coming over and doing a trip to the Gold Coast. It's only a couple hours drive to get to Aussie World.
But
I
they're not gonna
still
go
think they
there.
don't have, yeah, they don't have any reason to.
No.
Like all they need to do is put in a clone of something.
Well, they didn't go
And
to Adventure World, and it has arguably one of Australia's stronger coasters there. But because it's a model that can be found much closer to home where they are, it made no sense for them to go.
yes, but well, especially I think Adventure World is a bit of an interesting case with it being so far from everywhere else. It's like imagine if you did a trip to California to do all of those parks and then New York, if New York only had one coaster that you were interested in,
Yeah,
would you really fly all the way to New York just to get that coaster?
yeah.
Like it's yeah, Perth is a bit of a hike, so I can see why they wouldn't do Adventure World unless it had something really, really, really special. Um,
Speaking of,
but Aussie World, as I said, yeah,
do we think Adventure
ooh,
World are going to put anything new in the coming year or two?
I think they will,
My suspicion
but because
is that
yeah,
they will probably go with something to add to the water park as opposed to a coaster or another ride.
I suspect you're right, and that disappoints me
Same.
because I think the last thing they added was to the dry park at least was Goliath, and that was what 2017 or 18, something
Okay.
like that. So it's been a good while. Um, and I also do think that they need a coaster between Abyss and Dragon Express because that's a big jump.
100%. And there's
That is
also
a
this giant
really big jump.
hole that was left there from when they took out the top spin, whose name
Yeah,
escapes me right now.
Rampage.
Yeah,
Um, See, I feel like they need maybe just a family coaster. Previously, I've said that I'd like to see them get a family thrill coaster, something like a spinning coaster or something like that. But
yep.
I now am of the opinion that maybe even something more along the lines of like a Vekoma family boomerang or something even small like that would probably be just as good for the park because they
Yeah.
need something in between their literal Zamperla kiddie coaster and their Gerstlauer Eurofighter.
It's yeah,
Like that's a big jump.
it totally is, and it needs to be something that families are gonna like, you go because Abyss is intimidating for a lot of, people.
And rightly
Um,
so. It's an intense coaster.
yeah. And so they're gonna want to have something that both parents and kids will both want to get on together because Dragon Express is not.
Not for
It's just not.
parents. No. Yeah. It's not for anyone, honestly.
Let alone the big or
All right,
tall.
so to wrap this episode of the podcast up, which of those let's say four projects that are opening hopefully soonish at Australian theme parks do you think will be the best? And more importantly, will any of them be better than the Keith monorail?
Oh, okay. Second question, no, absolutely not. You can't compare. But I think if any of them have the
Impossible, yeah.
chance, then I would say Jungle Rush because custom layout, original storyline, complete reimagination of the area that it's been built on, which already was a little bit, you know, run down and sort of needed a lick of paint as it was. And anything that
Yeah.
replaces the big red car ride has to be an improvement.
Oh God, that ride. I still go back and watch the Defunct Land video on that every now and then.
It's so brutal, and it's, deserving.
It's that was a bizarre ride. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm looking forward mostly to Jungle Rush out of all of them. Like I said before, I think that being a new poster, a new layout, something that we haven't experienced before, that automatically gives it a head start. But I do think that I'm expecting big things from that theming as well. And
And
it'll be something
also,
fresh and new.
yeah, and I am 100% here for Dreamworld investing in their original characters and their original IP.
Absolutely. I think it's a great thing for them to leave the Nickelodeon and the DreamWorks days in the past. I know they've still got their thing with ABC, and I feel like that's more reliable though, because Dreamworld have always had a good relationship with the Wiggles in particular.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like just on a like the relationship that the park has with the ABC and their IPs in and of itself, and the fact that I also don't think that Movie World or SeaWorld or anyone else is particularly interested in competing for that contract. I think that's going to be a bit more reliable for them. Um, but
Totally.
I think it's a great thing for them to be leaving like the Madagascar and the Kung Fu Panda and the Shrek and all that in the past.
Absolutely. And the way that they've done Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland means that they can swap out any intellectual property with the least pain possible. Because
Yeah, they
the
they shouldn't
only
have
thing that
too
is
much.
overly branded for IP is the Big Red Boat Coaster, which could easily be rebranded to the Fun on the Beach
The,
Coaster or
the
Seaside.
the boat coaster.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and taken Humpty off the Humpty Go Round. That's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
it.
They shouldn't have any difficulty. Yeah. I think that's a really good move for them. Also, excitingly, we've seen the motor coaster shop get a paint job, and it looks like it is going to be included in Rivertown, which suggests one of two things.
Mhm.
Either motor coaster is going to no longer have a store and is going to have its queue slightly rerouted,
Yep.
and that's going to become like a Rivertown shop or whatever, or or we might be seeing the beginning of the end of the motor coaster. And
Do you
I
think
hope
that
you
it will be
hear
the
my
end
voice.
end,
I
or do you
think
think it'll be a
yes.
retheme?
I do not think they retheme that. If they're gonna try and include that area in Rivertown, I don't see the purpose in having two family launch coasters in the same area of the park, not even the same park, the same like area where their two signature attractions of Rivertown are really both going to be family launch coasters. No, I don't see that happening. If they don't
I
see a future for if they don't see a future for Motor Coaster on its own, then I think it's gonna go.
so you don't even think that they'll attempt to just put new trains on it?
I don't think so. I think that's a very expensive thing to do.
Okay.
Trains cost millions of dollars. They're the most expensive single component of a roller coaster.
Okay.
Um, so I think that's a big investment that would, yes, it would ultimately improve the ride quite significantly in terms of if it had jet rescue style trains, for example,
Yeah, I was thinking if
it
it was
would be
turned into like a jungle quad bike adventure or something.
well, yeah, it would be at least bearable.
Mm,
Um, but I also just don't think that it's that good that it would improve it that much. I have a lot of issues with that layout. I think it's just a poorly designed coaster overall. Um,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I see a tremendously large future for the motor coaster as part of Rivertown. I think the options that I can see Dreamworld taking are either keeping it around as the motor coaster for a while longer or scrapping it. Because that's also a very big plot of land, and if they want to expand on Rivertown or even do another new area of some sort,
Come
it's a
on,
big
Rocky
area.
Hollow RMC.
Oh please, oh please, please. RMC Raptor even would be fantastic.
No, I feel like although it may be the more affordable option, I feel like it would just be the I don't know, like we have RMC at home.
Yeah, yeah,
Like if I want an RMC, I want it to be a proper hybrid. So yeah, if we do get an RMC, I think a hybrid is the way to go, especially with sort of the direction that Dreamworld is going, where they seem to be doing a lot more Australiana kind of thing. Like they're
yeah,
obviously not going to go into a gold rush direction, but I think what makes sense that would also tie in with Steel Taipan is if it's like an Outback Adventures kind of area of the park where it's sort of deserty
yeah,
outback themed.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, I'm hoping that this is the beginning of the end for the motor coaster, not just because it's my nemesis, um, but I think it's also, Dreamworld really has a collection of rides that are doing it no favors. Penny's
Yeah.
Forest Flyer is another of those, where especially now that Movie World is opening a Vekoma suspended family coaster of their own, and one that we already know for a fact is going to be far superior. Um, it's yeah, it's doing Dreamworld no favors, and I think the only reason that I see it staying around is because they just recently rethemed it. Um, Motor Coaster is probably doing the most damage in terms of rides that just have that old shitty Dreamworld energy, like the bad Dreamworld.
The dream world where
Um,
everything needed a lick of paint.
yeah, the Dreamworld where everything looked bad, was not
Yeah.
as good as VRTP. That era
And
where VRTP clearly became the better
yeah.
theme park
And
operator. Motor
bless
Coaster is
Greg,
is part of that.
because Greg seems to
Yeah,
have been had a great deal of a hand in turning it around. He's like the Kevin Feige of Dreamworld. He's got a
he
plan
really
going
is.
on. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm excited to see what the long-term plan of that is. I think a lot of it is keeping attractions there that are still serviceable because there are other things that need to go sooner. Um, you
and
know,
even with obviously we've just seen the announcement for King Claw as well, which we haven't really talked about on the podcast yet, but um, he recognizes the icon that is the claw and
it's
how
part of the
how
logo.
symbolic it is. Yeah, it's become so symbolic um, of Dreamworld that even when the claw was no longer serviceable, he sees the value in keeping that iconography around. And I just don't think Motor Coaster fits that. So
Yeah.
look, I might be wrong. They might do like give it Yukon Quad style trains or whatever. I still don't think it would be a very great coaster because I think that layout is too slow. It's too drawn out.
Yeah.
Um, it's not really that interesting. But
I do think they
I
need to make that, you know, left side of the park more cohesive and put a land in.
yeah,
Because if their
yes, I
motto, no, don't know if it's still their motto, but if the motto was so many worlds in one, you're missing a world there,
oh, wow,
buddy.
that's a throwback. I haven't seen those ads in a long time. Um, yeah, I agree. I think that their next focus after Rivertown is done. I'd like to see something done. Just that whole stretch between Motor Coaster around the base of the giant drop and up to where Rocky Hollow Log Ride used to be. That whole area is very empty, and I think that they could do something
Potentially
quite good
also
with
where
it.
the vintage cars were.
Yeah, even that far, that like that's quite a stretch to go for that to all be one land. I wonder if they might do
But that's why I think an
something
RMC
something
would be
different.
good because that can be sort of where you're out and back part. of a layout could
It
be.
could be. It could be. I wonder if the money's there for a ground up RMC hybrid right now. I think if the money is there, um, then that would be a great thing to open for the 2032 Olympics.
Yeah.
That would
W-
be because, I think from a coaster enthusiast standpoint, if you open a new RMC hybrid, the automatic assumption is this would be one of the best roller coasters in the world.
Yeah. Because
Could
the
be, not
hybrids seem to be at the
necessarily.
top of
Yeah,
everybody's list. They certainly are with me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like it's not a guarantee. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a way to have a bad RMC hybrid, but
for every
so far they haven't.
for every
Yeah,
iron gwazi, there's a new lightning rod.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'd even say as much shit as Lightning Rod gets, if we didn't know, like if you just went and rode that and you didn't know what it used to be like, I feel like you'd probably still say it was a pretty damn good coaster. I think it's just all enthusiasts being upset because it used to be so much better.
Yeah,
But
totally.
um, it I don't think we've necessarily had a bad RMC hybrid yet. I would say the worst RMC hybrids from the reviews that I've heard, obviously I haven't been on one, but the ones with the worst reputation are still considered probably the best coasters at their parks and like very, very high quality.
Yeah,
So I
we're just
think it would
splitting hairs here.
automatically, yeah. Yeah, like you're talking about the difference between, sure, it might not be a Zadra or a Steel Vengeance or an Iron Gwazi, but I think if we had a Medusa Steel Coaster, that would
It'd
still be one of
still
the
be
best
one of the
coasters in
top coasters in
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, like it'd be fantastic. So I think it would be a great investment. I don't know if money's there for that, um,
Yeah,
but
it's fun to
we'll
dream
see.
though.
We'll see. It is
I
nice to
think the
dream.
more
We should.
likely choice is a water ride. Whether that's a
Yes,
flume or
and
a water coaster, who knows?
Dreamworld absolutely needs a water ride. And they've got to bite the bullet and do it because I think maybe what's been stopping them is that reputation. And
Yeah,
I don't want to go off talking about
yeah.
literal human tragedy on the podcast because we are
No,
a
not at
very, yeah. But
all. They
I
also
think
have
there
their
is
adjoining
this,
water park,
yeah,
so I feel like that is
yeah,
tiding people over for water-based attractions. But as
yeah.
far
So
as a
it's not
complete
a
theme park lineup, a water ride seems a logical gap in their lineup.
yeah. It's not as desperate a need because it's not like they don't have anything at all to do on a 40-degree day because they do have Whitewater World, but yeah, to have a park of that scale that doesn't have a log flume or a rapids ride or something like that, and obviously they're not going to have a rapids ride, but like it's such an anomaly for there not to be a single one. And obviously we know why, but eventually I feel like if they want to go back, if they want to rebuild themselves, they're gonna have to bite the bullet. They need one. They need
Yeah,
one badly. And I think maybe the best way to approach that is to do something unique and to do something that clearly distinguishes itself from those rides of the past.
yep.
Um, so I think something along the lines of a water coaster or along the lines of, one of those more unique, more modern water ride attractions that we're seeing at the moment. I think it could be a good
Power
avenue
Splash or
for
something.
Dreamworld to explore. Yeah, I don't like the idea of a power splash. I've heard that put out a lot of times for Dreamworld, and I just feel it's um a bit too thrilling for what they should be going for because I think they need it to be a family attraction.
Sure.
But also it's, ideally I want them to theme it and ideally I want them to give it a storyline. And that's kind of a hard thing to do with what is literally just a shuttle coaster with a splashdown.
Yeah. Before we sign off, do we want to sort of talk about, fan theories of what might be coming to Dreamworld? And, I have heard sort of people speculating about the concept of maybe a Thunderbolt 2.0.
I've heard that rumor somewhere as well, and I don't remember where. Um, but that would be cool. And I do like this idea that Dreamworld is going to um kind of bring back that identity that it used to have.
Yeah,
Um, that kind of yeah, it used to have this very unique Australiana themed identity and its own kind of icons and that sort of thing. And I like the idea that they want to lean on that.
totally.
So I'd if they announced a coaster that was like Thunderbolt, um, and a tribute to Thunderbolt, I think that'd be really cool. Um, I there are particular icons that I wonder if they'll ever try to back. One comes to mind that I wonder if maybe this will be way down the line. I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. But Tower of Terror, um, I wonder if there's a modern shuttle coaster from Intamin
I think
that
with
could
the
make an
amount of
appearance.
money that they spent taking the old one out, I don't
Yeah,
see it being in sort of in even in the same footprint, let alone the same format of what was there. Like, I feel like Giant Drop will be torn down before they put in a Tower of Terror 2 or
which
3.0,
is
as
not
it
going to
were.
happen. They're not going to tear down the giant drop unless it's completely unserviceable. I feel like they'd if giant drop went out of its service life tomorrow, they'd rip it out and replace it with another drop tower. Surely, like they'd get Intamin to build a new generation drop tower on the same structure
Yeah. So
because you'd be stupid not to. Like
because
it's
even though
that's
it's
another one that's
sporadic in whether it runs both cars, it's still a really amazing drop tower. It's the best one in Australia.
it's an icon of the park as well now. So
Yeah.
I've you'd be stupid. Yeah, if Giant Drop is past its service life, for me, the only solution is call Intamin and say we're ripping this one out and putting in a new Gen Drop tower on the same structure. Like
Yeah.
that's the only solution. Um. Anyway, we've been going for ages.
Yeah, we've gone for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, almost. So let's wrap it up. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channels, Ejector Bear Time and Maloney's Coasters. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And wow, we did a cohesive podcast where we actually mostly talked about coasters.
I know. We made a couple of, tangents, but and it got off to a bit of a chaotic start, but we pretty much stayed on topic for most of
We were good boys this week.
it. We get a gold star.
We did a good thing this week.
M
Oh, good job,
Merit
guys.
certificates all round.
Yeah, it's it's the teacher's dream day where all the kids actually behave themselves for once. Next week we'll be back and we will barely mention a coaster.
Yeah,
We'll be off on some tangent again.
you can't expect two gold stars in a row.
No, no. You go home and be like, all right, that's the good day for the month.
You've had your productive ADHD day.
Yeah,
Back to the
the day
chaos.
where I actually, yeah. Oh boy. All right. Well, we're going to see you guys next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Click the like and subscribe or whatever button there is on whatever platform you're listening to us, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time, I'm Ejector Bear Time,
I'm Maloney's Coasters, and this has been a
and this
total
is a
bunch
total
of
bunch of bearlony.
it. What a bunch of baloney.
What a bunch.
What a bunch.
Bye.